Hello, I'm Emily.Pettis and I'm an architectural historian with Mead Hunt. Our firm has researched, documented, and evaluated several ice cream stands and frozen treat restaurants across the country. Today's presentation will provide a brief overview of the history of ice cream. We'll highlight a few different types and examples, and we'll offer some thoughts on evaluating integrity and significance. To get us started, I'll hand it off to my colleague, Tim.Smith.
Thank you, Emily. So I'm going to get started here with some historic background, and this is not intended to be a complete history of ice cream, but just some context to understand development of post-war ice cream stands. So by the mid-1930s, the American ice cream factory had evolved past the labor-intensive techniques of the 19th century, which involved salt and ice, towards more automated and efficient production processes. Modern freezers and packaging equipment, combined with improvements in the hardening process, led to smoother ice cream that was available in a multitude of flavors. Refrigerated delivery trucks also enabled expansion of the ice cream industry. During this time, ice cream was not readily available in supermarkets, so roadside ice cream stands and parlors remained the best place for Americans to indulge themselves. By the mid to late 1930s, early 1940s, small roadside ice cream stands and restaurants specializing in ice cream were located throughout the country and included chains like Dutchland Farms, Howard Johnson's, Prince Castle, Henry's, Friendly's, and Curry's, and many others in small communities. And no discussion of ice cream would be complete without talking a little bit about soft serve ice cream. In 1929, a gentleman by the name of Tom Carville began selling ice cream from his vending truck. And as the story goes, he had a flat tire near Hartsdale, New York one day in 1934 and ended up selling the softened and partially melted ice cream from the back of his truck, and people loved it. He went on to establish the Carville Ice Cream Company in 1934, and this is generally considered to be the first retail ice cream company founded in the United States. Also during the 1930s, John F. McCullough and his son founded the Homemade Ice Cream Company in Green River, Illinois, and they began experimenting with the idea of serving ice cream at higher than normal temperatures. They believed less cold ice cream improved the flavor for consumers by not numbing their taste buds. By 1938, the McCulloughs had created an ice cream mix that consisted of 6% butterfat and was served at 18 degrees rather than the traditional 5 degrees. The ice cream still held its shape at this temperature, and this variety came to be known as soft-serve ice cream. The McCulloughs set out to commercialize soft-serve ice cream and eventually gained manufacturing rights to a continuous freezer that enabled ice cream to be served at higher temperatures. The ice cream mix was improved, and their new product was served at 23 degrees and called Dairy Queen. In June 1940, Sherb Noble, owner of an ice cream shop in Kankakee, Illinois, received the first license to sell the McCullough's new Dairy Queen product, and he opened the first shop to sell the soft serve product in a circa 1895 commercial building at 501 North Chicago Street in Joliet, Illinois, and the shop was named Dairy Queen, and you can see a photo of that here. Noble and the McCulloughs opened 2 additional locations in the spring of 1941 in Moline and Aurora, Illinois. The Moline location was the first standalone shop and was constructed based on blueprints developed by the McCulloughs. The white painted building had a simple rectangular form, flat roof with overhanging eaves, 2 walk-up service windows on the front facade, a large fixed frame window on each side elevation, and a sign on the roof. The Aurora location was housed in a converted Shell gas station. The design of Dairy Queen ice cream stands evolved over time, ranging from the original flat roof rectangular building to the barn-themed Farm Fresh iteration to the examples with the mansard roof and other unique examples such as this one in the Twin Cities in the bottom right-hand corner. The onset of World War II initially slowed the production of ice cream. In 1941, the U.S. government classified ice cream as a non-essential food and began rationing sugar. Nationally, production of soft-serve ice cream dwindled due to the rationing. Recognizing the impact this would have on ice cream manufacturers and retailers, the International Association of Ice Cream Manufacturers and the National Dairy Council lobbied officials to reverse the decision, and ice cream, was eventually placed on the list of the 7 basic foods. Ice cream manufacturers were sometimes permitted to exceed rations of sugar and other ingredients because they supplied ice cream to military bases and in areas where the wartime economy was booming. Interestingly, ice cream actually developed into a morale booster for soldiers. In 1943, the U.S. Army shipped 135 million pounds of dehydrated ice cream mix to military bases around the world to enable soldiers to make their very own vanilla ice cream. And soldiers often mixed in any flavoring they could find, such as crushed candy, chocolate, or canned fruits, to make it their own. Even nearing the end of the war in February 1945, the Quartermaster Corps of the U.S. Army began setting up small ice cream plants near the front lines to rush half-pint cartons of ice cream to soldiers. The national obsession with ice cream continued after World War II. Conventional production methods persisted, and its availability in supermarkets expanded greatly. But ice cream sold in grocery stores contained numerous chemicals and preservatives, and its airy and fluffy texture was actually unsatisfying to many consumers. As a result, specialty mom-and-pop ice cream shops remained relatively popular for their quality and variety of flavors, a trend I would say continues today. In addition to mom-and-pop shops, a number of national ice cream chains also came into prominence during this period, and I'll just highlight a few of them here. I already mentioned Carvel. This was established in 1934 and thought to be the first retail ice cream company in the United States. Dairy King was established in 1940 and became a national chain, growing from 17 franchise stores in 1946 to 1,400 by the end of the 1940s. In 1945, Irv Robin opened Snowbird Ice Cream in Glendale, California, and the following year, his brother-in-law, Burt Baskin, opened Burton's Ice Cream in Pasadena. By 1948, they had 6 stores between them and eventually merged into Baskin-Robbins. Zesto, one of my personal favorites, was established in 1948. A gentleman by the name of Phelan was head of the Taylor Freezer Corporation prior to this time, and this company invented the Zesto-Mat frozen custard machine in 1945. The first Zesto ice cream stand opened in 1948 as a national franchise chain in Jefferson City, Missouri, and it continued to expand over the course of the 1940s and 50s throughout the Midwest, southern states, and also some western states. And the one you see here in the bottom left-hand corner is one that my firm surveyed in Omaha, Nebraska that's still intact. It's quite nice. They have the best double-dipped cherry dipped cones. So good. Foster's Freeze is another regional chain in California that developed. Initially, George Foster had purchased development rights for the entire state of California from Dairy Queen. But when he arrived in California, he realized there were strict laws controlling the use of the word dairy. Since he couldn't use the name Dairy Queen, he called his new business Foster's Freeze. The first one opened in 1946 in Inglewood, California, and he ran them as franchises. And by 1951, there were 360 across California. So there's just a few examples of how ice cream got so popular across the country. And now I'll turn it over to Emily to highlight some of the common features that you'll see on post-war ice cream stands, and then she'll also provide a few case studies.
Thanks, Tim. I'm going to highlight some of the common character-defining features of ice cream stands and frozen treat restaurants using this example of Allianz frozen custard stand in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, frozen custard is very similar to soft serve ice cream. You can see here that this building has wide overhanging eaves with exaggerated roof lines that shelter much of the restaurant. It has a glass storefront with walk-up windows and eye-catching signage that's oriented toward the road. Here there's a freestanding neon sign located behind the back edge of the curb, as well as neon signage on top of the building. And in this case, we also have an employee entrance and restrooms at the rear. Often, egress to the building is located at the rear. Our firm became acquainted with Gunthers through a citywide study of mid-century architecture where we prepared an eligibility determination for the property. Tim is also lucky enough to live near this one. Designed by notable Sacramento architectural firm Koblich & Fisher in 1949, The building illustrates distinctive characteristics, showing a transition away from the more modest, streamlined modern massing and style of the 1930s toward the free-form and exuberant Googie style of the 1950s, evidenced in its folded roofline, tilted plate glass storefront, and animated neon sign. By the 1940s, Art Moderne architecture had evolved from sleek horizontal lines and rounded corners to a more boxy and angular version of the style known as Late Moderne. This style had similar massing, but no curved elements. It also had bands of windows with protruding surrounds and minimal canopies over entryways that was readily applied to commercial buildings. The designs for coffee shops, diners, and ice cream stands in the years immediately following World War II, including Gunthers Ice Cream, were considered new and experimental, and their exuberant and creative details eventually coalesced into a new style historians now recognize as Googie, named after Lautner's Sunset Boulevard coffee shop. Gunthers Ice Cream was constructed in 1949 during this time of experimentation and transition and displays some of these features and design concepts. Alterations include a stone veneer added to exterior walls in 1984, including the bulkhead below the plate glass storefront, as well as exterior additions in 1982 and 2013 for additional storage, freezer space, and exterior restrooms. The interior has undergone some updates over time, but generally retains the original spatial arrangement. The neon sign on top of the building was designed in 1949 by the Electrical Products Corporation in consultation with William Herman Gunther and constructed at a cost of $500. The Electrical Products Corporation was associated with the Xeon Corporation, a national nonprofit institution devoted to improvement of design and marketing standards for electrical signs. Electrical and plastic signs with the Xeon trademark were known to be of the highest quality. Gunthers neon sign features multiple colors and incorporates multiple layers of neon lighting tubes powered by a timed sequence of Jugglin' Joe tossing an ice cream scoop. Gunthers Ice Cream was recommended eligible for the National Register of Historic Places under criteria A and C for its association with post-war commercial expansion and development, and as an early example of mid-century modern architecture in Sacramento, illustrating an important transition of post-war styles applied to a commercial property. The animated neon sign on top of the building was also recommended eligible under criterion C as a distinctive local example of commercial signage and neon technology. Gunthers was listed as a Sacramento Historic Landmark in 2018. Mead Hunt first encountered the Wisconsin Rapids Dairy Queen several years ago as part of an intensive citywide historic resources survey. We completed a formal eligibility evaluation a few years ago as part of a Section 106 compliance survey for a highway improvement project. A 1954 advertisement in the Wisconsin Rapids Daily Tribune for the Dairy Queen's grand opening included artwork of the building and rooftop sign and invited patrons to come and enjoy a taste of spring. Available products included cones, sundaes, malts, and shakes, as well as ice cream sold in quarts and pints. This Dairy Queen is highly intact and retains its flat roof with a wide canopy that overhangs the entire building and the original rooftop neon signage. The exterior colors of blue and white with a red stripe and roof are consistent with the company's 1950s color scheme. Together, the flat roof, wide canopy, window arrangement, color scheme, and signage reflect the early period of Dairy Queen building design. Exterior alterations are limited to the in-kind replacement of a plate glass window and a single covered window tucked below the awning. The building retains the original cladding, service windows, neon sign, and rear entrances, as well as its interior configuration. The Dairy Queen was recommended eligible for the National Register under criterion C architecture as an intact example of the Dairy Queen store property type and reflects the earliest design used for the national chain between 1941 and 1959, prior to the establishment of the company's corporate fresh design in 1960. Despite the altered fenestration, the building retains a high degree of integrity. Now I'll walk you through how to recognize some altered examples of this property type. We surveyed this former Tastee Freez as part of a 2018 highway interchange project in Reno, Nevada. It is located along a popular commercial strip that includes a number of post-war buildings geared at the automobile traveler. It was built circa 1953 and operated as an ice cream stand through the 1950s. Tastee Freez was founded in 1950 in Illinois, and during the 1950s, it was the fastest growing ice cream chain in the United States, with over 1,000 stores across the nation. Tastee Freez restaurants were often of a similar design, featuring glass picture windows with a walk-up window to place orders that was prominent on the facade, a flat roof that slopes from the front facade to the rear elevation, a large rounded front overhang over the ordering window, wide overhanging eaves to protect the customer from the elements, and signage on the roof. Although this building exhibits elements of the typical Tastee Freez building design, it has been heavily altered. It's been converted to non-commercial use, has a rear addition and new stucco exterior with applied decorative elements. However, it does retain the three-part walk-up window on the facade and the rounded front overhang. This property lacks integrity and is not eligible for the National Register. Here's another altered example that's been converted to new use, but retains the trademark split mansard roof utilized by Dairy Queens following the initial flat roof franchise design. Although it has been painted and all signage has been removed, it's easily recognizable as a Dairy Queen if you know what to look for.
Okay, thank you, Emily, and thank you everyone for your attention and your interest in post-war ice cream stands. This was a lot of fun to put together, and we hope that it provided some useful information for you as you conduct surveys and evaluations of this property type in the future. So Emily and I will be glad to field any questions that you have now.